President-elect Joe Biden is officially announcing nominees for his economic team at an event tomorrow afternoon. Mr. Biden is naming Janet Yellen as his pick to lead the Treasury Department. Yellen would be the first woman in the role if confirmed by the Senate. She has previously broken the glass ceiling at the Federal Reserve, where she became the first woman to chair the national bank in 2014. The president-elect is also naming other senior economic officials. He is selecting Cecilia Rouse as the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. Rouse is an economist serving as dean of the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Neera Tanden is Mr. Biden's pick for director of the Office of Management and Budget. She has worked for several Democratic campaigns and is currently president of the Center for American Progress, a liberal think tank. The president-elect also breaking ground with his communications team. His entire senior staff in that department will be led by women. At the forefront will be Jennifer Psaki as the White House press secretary. She's a former White House communications director under President Obama. Mr. Biden's communication director will be Kate Bedingfield. She served as the president-elect's deputy campaign manager. For more analysis on the transition, I want to bring in David Litt. He's a former speechwriter for President Obama, and he is the author of Democracy in One Book or Less: How It Works, Why It Doesn't, and Why Fixing It is Easier Than You Think. David, welcome. So great to have you with us. We'll get to your book in just a second, and I'm so glad to hear that democracy is easier to fix than a lot of us worry about. That's good news. But first, let's talk about Mr. Biden's picks for his senior economic team. What does this signal to you about his plan to rebuild the economy during and after the pandemic?
Well, thank you for having me on, Tanya. And the thing that I think is most important to recognize with these picks for the economic team from the incoming Biden administration is that they are really focused on finding the best people for the jobs, making sure that government reflects the diversity of America. But when you look at someone like a Janet Yellen, who is respected not just among liberals, among Democrats, but really from all sides of the political spectrum, you see this over and over again with these picks. He's picking people who will move the country in the direction he promised on the campaign trail, but these are also people who are deeply respected as experts in their fields and as competent individuals who can get the job done. And I think after 4 years of nepotism and corruption from the Trump administration, it's a relief from a lot of quarters, maybe more quietly in Republican circles and loudly in Democratic ones, but there's a sense of relief that the government will be run by grown-ups again.
So do you see these nominations then as having an easy time going through the Senate?
Sorry, I laughed at your question because I think, sadly, I don't believe that Mitch McConnell has demonstrated that he's willing to put the country and the interests of our economy at a moment when there's a huge amount of struggle all throughout the economy ahead of partisan politics. So, no, I suspect that we will see some number of these nominees, maybe a very large number of these nominees, opposed by Republicans in the Senate. Keep in mind, these are for the most part, Republicans who still aren't willing to admit that Joe Biden won the presidential election. They're helping or trying to go along with President Trump's attempts to steal an election. So the partisanship among Washington Republicans has gotten really out of control. But if you look below that level, at voters, at state officials, what you're seeing is that people are tired of all of this, and they want to see people who will put the country first, who will manage the economy well. And I think that regardless of how the hearings play out, Biden is putting forward a team that clearly has that in mind.
All right, I do want to focus on one potential nominee that Biden is reportedly floating, and that's Rahm Emanuel. Axios reports Mr. Biden is considering him as transportation secretary, but there are other reports he's being weighed for U.S. trade representative. Progressives have voiced intense opposition to Emanuel, citing his handling of the murder of Laquan McDonald while he was mayor of Chicago. Now, both of you are alumni of the Obama administration. Does Rahm Emanuel still have a place in Biden's cabinet? Is this a fight worth picking for the president-elect?
So I should say that Rahm Emanuel served there the first 2 years, and then I joined the administration in a much more junior capacity after that. So I don't know him personally. I will generally say, for the most part, and we just discussed this, what we're going to be talking about over the next or the first several weeks of the Biden administration is going to be Republican obstruction, right? You're going to see Mitch McConnell and company dig up any old tweet from anybody after years pretending that they haven't heard a word that Donald Trump said. If Rahm Emanuel is nominated to a cabinet post, then I think you will see a lot of critiques and criticism, especially around his handling or failed handling of the Laquan McDonald murder, coming from progressives in the party and coming from people who say, is this disqualifying? And I think, I don't have a prediction. I think that's certainly not my job. But I do think it's important that we will see real questions. And I assume that Rahm Emanuel, like any cabinet secretary, will have to really defend his record and explain what he did as mayor of Chicago, including that police shooting, including that murder, but also broadening out to the rest of his record as mayor. So I think that we're probably going to see two different types of hearings, one that are conducted in bad faith by Republicans who just want to obstruct the Biden administration, but we may also see some criticisms from the left that are not about obstruction, but are about a real division of views within the Democratic Party and how we can reconcile them.
Right. Well, let's talk about those division of views within the Democratic Party for a moment, because, of course, we saw the Democratic Party come together pretty impressively to get, Joe Biden elected. But we are already seeing some of these battles reemerge between factions of the Democratic Party. One such place is the choice for Agriculture Secretary. As the New York Times reports, there's a fight over whether the department's focus should be on traditional issues such as rural America or a new emphasis on hunger and nutrition. So, David, given how many of Mr. Biden's picks so far are Obama alums, from what you're seeing, is he doing enough to bring together all wings of the Democratic Party?
Well, we're a big tent, and I think Democrats are proud to be a big tent. So, of course, you have people who don't see eye to eye on every issue. But I just want to take a step back and point out how incredibly refreshing this is, because for 4 years, we've been saying which of the president's family members will be appointed to a high position in the administration because they're related by blood or marriage to the president of the United States. We've been saying which of his corrupt business associates will get top jobs, or which of his political cronies will get elevated because they're willing to lie on the president's behalf. So the fact that we're now debating, is the Secretary of Agriculture going to have the exact right focus that makes everybody happy? Who knows? I don't know who the Secretary of Agriculture is going to be, but I'm so pleased that as a country, we are back to debating these very normal questions of what's the best way forward? How do we figure out how to have choices that unify everybody? And I would point to the beginning of our conversation, when you look at the economic team, when you look at the communications team, many others, the Biden transition has done an excellent job so far of picking people who hold the Democrats together, who are respected even among conservatives who may not agree with them. I see no reason that won't continue. But just the fact that this is the discussion we're having rather than the last 4 years of chaos says a lot about where we are now headed as a country because Joe Biden won this election.
David Litt, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.